Hi, it's Steph, and today we're going to do the September garden tour. Despite it being mid-September and us being a week away from fall, the garden is still looking really nice. The knockout roses have started to put out another flush of blooms. This gomphrena along my walkway is looking beautiful, and some other things in the garden as well. So come hang out with me while we check out what the garden looks like right now in mid-September. We'll start here by the front walkway, and this gomphrena is looking absolutely beautiful. This is an annual, and I grew it from seed, and it was so easy to grow from seed. You just have to soak the seeds overnight in some water, and then you plant them out, and in about maybe 8 weeks or so you end up with this. So I started these the first week or so of June, and it is now the first week of September. Well, actually, we're in the second week of September now, and they're looking lovely. This variety of gomphrena is called Atomic Purple, and I purchased the seeds from Baker Creek online. My knockout roses are still putting on a lot of new growth and some bloom buds. You can see here all of this red is new growth. I had a deer come through and prune these for me. And so the result is that I got a bunch of new growth. All this red you see is new growth, and it's still budding up and producing blooms as we head into fall. So, as much as I struggle with roses in my garden, these are the ones that give me the least trouble, the knockouts. Now, they do still get some things, like I get sawtooth larvae on them. The holes get kind of eaten through on the leaves. They get some holes. You get some yellow spot. But if I compare these to my English roses, these are a lot less work. I have a few evergreens in my beds that I often get questions on, and I will do a video on my evergreens. But look at this beautiful yellow one in the back there. That is a Forever Goldie Arborvitae. I used to have them in containers on the sides of my driveway. They got too large, and then I planted them out in the landscape, flanking either side of this wall, or this stone bump out here. My Japanese maple is putting on a ton of vertical growth, and I'm actually going to let it. I want it to get a little bit taller, and then I can prune off what I don't want, after. You can just let it kind of go wild, and then you can shape it as we get into next spring. I'll go in and I'll prune what I don't want and leave what I do. But this one has gotten beautiful. I bought this thing as a tiny twig at the Home Depot about 9 years ago. Look how bright the new growth is. So pretty. My candy corn spirea is still looking gorgeous as ever. Look at all those little orangey red tips. That is new growth. This shrub is such a beauty and has so many different colors throughout the season. And I can't wait to see its fall color show up in just a couple of weeks. I had limbed up this gold mop false cypress into a little tree, and it has put on so much growth and is getting really shaggy, so I'm going to give it a haircut soon. But I just love this shrub. Look at that contrast in yellow with this gorgeous green backdrop of my Hinoki cypress. My white swan coneflower is still blooming. There are a lot of spent blooms that should be deadheaded, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let them stay so that they can drop seeds and hopefully cause the plant to spread a little bit, because I really enjoy these. Some pretty fall colors starting up on this small leaf rhododendron. This is a dwarf variety, and it has a really beautiful apricot blush bloom in the spring. And this tiny little anemone that I purchased at a plant sale for $3 this summer. This is an Honorine Joubert, and it actually has a couple of buds, which is really exciting. I had to lop off some of I just kind of pinched these off. This foliage wasn't looking great. Anemones like moist soil, and I had forgotten to water this for a few days while it was establishing, and they kind of started drying out the leaves. But I'm happy to be getting some buds. This bed here over by my driveway is also looking really nice, with the exception of my Bobo hydrangeas, which got a little bit toasty this year. The lack of rain and too much sun made them burn right up, and they got really brown and just unattractive. But this blue spruce, this is a weeping blue spruce, I absolutely love it. I used to have a weeping cherry tree in this general area in the center of this bed, but it only looked pretty for about a week in the spring, and then I spent the rest of the summer pruning off all kinds of wild branches that were going every which way. So I decided that's it, it's out of here, and I replaced it with an evergreen. That gives me year-round interest, and this color is just gorgeous. This beautiful blue bloom, I know it's looking more purple on camera, but in person it almost looks like ultraviolet with a cast of blue. It's just stunning. But a friend of mine, a garden friend of mine, Catherine actually, gave me 3 of these. She started from seed. The variety is called Blue Horizon, and these have gone non-stop since I've planted them. They're absolutely beautiful and such a great height too. Not too big where they'll flop. I'm really enjoying them. This here is my Lavender Bubbles Allium that the pollinators absolutely love. There are bees on these non-stop. And look at this foxglove in the fall. I planted these from seed. I winter sowed these seeds this winter back in March, so early March, and they're just starting to send out bloom stalks. Now this is a variety called Dalmatian Peach, and they're not peach. The reason for that is because these are hybrid seeds, the Dalmatian Peach, and I collected my own seeds from last year when I grew them, and so they are not true to the hybrid variety when they come up. So in this case, I got some pink foxglove. They're still really beautiful. I adore foxgloves. And I'm getting what looks to be a white one over here. There's a bud, or a bloom I should say, on my Eustacia V David Austin rose. And there's another one here. But you see that bud? It kind of looks like there's thrips. You can tell because the bud kind of looks deformed. I struggle so much with these English roses. This one here is a real beauty. This is the Olivia Rose Austin, and she's stunning. I'm standing about 2 feet from the rose right now, and I can smell it. It smells awesome. Of all the David Austin roses I have in my garden, the Olivia Rose Austin is the healthiest one. All of the others struggle quite a bit. And this rose has been going since June, and it's still putting on new growth and some buds. Here's a newer one. Look how beautiful that is. They start a pretty pink, and then they age to this lighter pink. And look how many petals. And I still have some more coming. And the foliage on this one, even though it has a little bit of yellow spot, it generally looks pretty good. I have some Limelight Standard hydrangeas on either side of my driveway walls, and they are actually looking really lovely also. You'll have to ignore this makeshift staking that we have going on. We have a lot of winds in this area, so we'll be doing a little bit more official staking this fall. In front of our driveway walls, I have some creeping phlox and lots of daffodils that offer some spring color. And then I added a drift of thrift. Now the thrift was already in full bloom, Armeria is what it's called, when I first planted it. So it did kind of stop blooming maybe about a month ago or so. But I have a couple that are still sending out bloom stalks. Let me show you. Look at those guys. Still happy. That is the only corner that gets a tiny bit of shade. So the only thing I could think of is that maybe those plants stood a little bit more moist. Even though these do like dry conditions, it was an extremely dry and hot summer. So I think it might have stressed these a little bit because they were new plantings. But still looking really good. In fact, this one here, I just had a few blooms that I now have to deadhead. But look, it has another bud getting ready to shoot up. And if you've been around for a little while, back in really early spring, around March 25th, I had sowed some poppies. These are the apple blossom California poppies, or maybe just apple blossom poppies. I'll link the video. And I didn't get a ton of plants, but out of the whole pack that I sowed, I got about 4 plants to come up. There's one here, there's one there. This one's already had a few blooms. And look how pretty these blooms are. They're like this gorgeous, like blush apricot color. And they're really like papery and billowy. Really pretty. So I would say that's pretty successful to sow them in spring direct into the ground. I got 4 plants, so not a ton of germination, but to even get some blooms is really good. And I also at that time had sowed some of the lilac pom-pom poppies, and I showed them in some of my earlier garden tours, and those actually came up also. So all in all, I would call that a success. This is the view as you come down the driveway, and I had planted these bobos here to create kind of a hedge as you drive in. And I have some gay feather or liatris and some iris that offer some grassy texture kind of tucked in here as well. And this Japanese maple here was one that I had left for dead. It wasn't doing well. I ended up leaving the twig in a planter over by the trash can, and wouldn't you know that within a couple of months it started to shoot out new growth? So clearly it was alive. I planted it here and it's looking absolutely beautiful, cascading over this wall. My 9 bark is still looking lovely, and within the next few weeks it should brighten up and get its gorgeous fall color. I think it's going to look lovely with this blue evergreen. The lawn is greening up really nicely now that the weather has cooled off. And of course that makes George really happy. Loves a green, lush lawn. Let's take a look at the patio bed. So I did an experiment, and back at the end of July, maybe the first week of August actually, I planted some more zinnias, and I had one more strawberry blonde. Actually I had 2 or 3, and one actually came up of the strawberry blonde sunflower. So we'll see what happens. I was trying to push the limits and see how late I could sow zinnia seeds and see if we would get blooms. So time will tell. But this bed is just now starting to transition into fall. I absolutely love this Japanese maple. It's called Garnet. It's a lace leaf Japanese maple. Here in the front, I have my My Monet Purple Effect Weigela, and look at the foliage on this. This is quickly becoming my favorite Weigela because of all the interest that this foliage provides. It's also a dwarf, so if you have limited space, this one only stays about 2 feet tall and wide. Here's my At Last Rose, still putting out buds, and they have the most beautiful apricot color. And look at that yarrow, the Tutti Frutti Apricot Delight yarrow. My Millennium Allium is now done blooming, but even the seed heads really look nice. They kind of look fall-esque, don't they? And then my Rock and Grow Lemon Jade Sedum is in full bloom, has a really pretty creamy green kind of look to it. I actually have to move it because it's kind of hidden in the back here. My wee white hydrangeas here that I actually had deadheaded pretty aggressively about a month ago, maybe going back almost 6 weeks now. They had gotten to look like little heads of roasted cauliflower. They did not take the really dry summer and high heat that we had very well. So I did deadhead them quite a bit, but they're starting to put on a bunch of new buds. My coneflowers are pretty much done in this bed. Again, I'm going to leave the heads up so that they can drop some seed. But I took some zinnias that were kind of shaded in my vegetable garden and I plopped them in here to maybe get a couple of blooms added to this bed before our frost. But you know what is looking wonderful? The anemones. Look at these. These are either September Charm or Robotissima. I did buy these at a garden fair and they were just labeled anemone, so I've been trying to figure out which variety they are. They have a lighter pink in the center, they're a single, and then they have a darker pink in the back. I disturbed that little guy. And here's the garden fail. This is my Carding Mill David Austin rose. This rose has always struggled in my garden, and this year is no exception. It's constantly riddled with black spot and yellow leaf, and I have to keep pruning it, and it's just not looking great. I just hope it makes it through the winter, and maybe next year it might be a little bit better. This Ogon Sweet Flag in this pretty yellow looks really nice interplanted with my Cat's Pajamas Nepeta, or catmint. I've only deadheaded this catmint one time this summer and it keeps blooming. So it's a really good one, and it's nice and short and compact, so great option for a Nepeta for the front of the border. I cut back my Munstead lavender also a few weeks back and it is flushed out, sending out a couple of sporadic blooms, but not as much as the first flush. You see a few here. But I really love this blue-gray foliage. You see that pretty little yellow bloom? That's a dandelion. We're gonna let it be for now. And here is the rest of the zinnias that I planted in, I want to say it was the first week of August. I've already pinched them and they've started to branch out some more. This is a Zinurita mix, so they should look like a salmon pink cactus type. So we shall see. Fingers crossed for some blooms. And this Japanese maple that I planted in this bed here, this is a summer gold Japanese maple. Has also put on quite a bit of growth this summer, which makes me really happy. So this Tutti Frutti Apricot Delight yarrow that I cut back did send out some more blooms. There it is. And right behind it I have a Queen Lime Red Zinnia, which is looking beautiful as well. This blue spruce topiary has also adjusted well to this corner here. We just planted this one this summer, or actually late spring. It is a lollipop or standard form. And I can't say enough about this Scabiosa Butterfly Blue. This thing blooms non-stop from spring through hard frost. This one needs a little bit of deadheading, but there is never a shortage of blooms to follow. The foliage on my geum is starting to yellow and needs a little bit of cleanup, but my Pugster, and this one is called Blue, Pugster Blue, is still putting out a ton of blooms. Here are some. And this butterfly bush is a dwarf variety, so it stays compact. So if you want a butterfly bush but don't have the space, this one only gets to be about 2 feet tall and wide. And these smell amazing. They actually smell like lilac. Does anybody else grow these? And do you think that they also smell like lilac? Comment below. This one is a Queen Lime Blotch Zinnia. And the blooms on this plant have been a little bit smaller, but still really beautiful. Things on the patio are looking good. Here is my ferns that I divided back in mid-May sometime, the Boston ferns. I had made a video, buy one, get 3 free. I bought a really large Boston fern and I was able to do these 2 hanging baskets as well as 2 urns on the patio near the shed. Here I have some black-eyed Susan vine. The variety on these is called Blushing Susie. When they first open up, they have a little bit of a pink cast to them, but then they sort of age to this peachy color. There's a new one here. It's kind of what it looks like. But it has grown a ton, and my trellis definitely isn't tall enough. It could use some more height. Maybe I'll try next year just putting some fishing line up this post and seeing if I can get it to grow all the way up. My boxwood topiary are looking really nice. They're growing well. I've been pruning, the growth that kind of shoots off, the plant here and there, but I do want to keep it, I have to shape them. I want to keep them in a sphere or a ball type topiary. And I love the way that the boxwood goes with the terracotta. It just looks really pretty to me. I will have to overwinter these. My plan is to put them in my shed and water them periodically. Terracotta is not frost hardy, so I won't be able to leave these outside in winter. I've been keeping this tri-colored beech on my back patio. It is full sun in the morning and then afternoon shade. It's put on some new growth. It's not the best shaped tree, but hopefully when I plant it, I'll stake it a little bit better. I'm just hoping that it thrives because I got a really good deal on that. And here I have my Seiboldi sedum, grouped with this Fern Spray Fall Cypress and my clearance fiddle leaf fig. I got this fiddle leaf fig for $5 on clearance at Lowe's, and it just had 2 leaves when I brought it out this summer. But this plant has been loving the heat and humidity that we've had this summer, and it has just exploded with growth. So I will be taking this indoor in the winter. I'm going to repot it, and I think it looks great. I really love this plant. I know they can be finicky, so I don't know how it'll do once I transition it inside, but time will tell. And I just love the golden color on this evergreen. I can't wait to plant it in the landscape. These pots here on the side of my back door, they are also filled out really nicely. I have a Alyssum and nasturtium, and then I have an evergreen in the center. It's a type of Tuja in the middle, but I'm not sure exactly the variety. I bought them on clearance maybe going on 2 years ago now. These look tiny because they were getting eaten by deer where I had them planted. So I put them in these containers to sort of recover. But I'll show you what they look like when they grow out. I have 2 also planted in my planters on the side of my driveway. Some Haconocloa. This is the Aurora variety or Areola variety, and I am going to plant it in the landscape this fall. But it was kind of slow to wake up and a little bit small this spring, so I threw it in a pot to kind of monitor it. The Alyssum is still going. This is one that I think thrives in cool temperatures because it slows down in the summer and it seems to be picking up again right about now. Here's some geranium that I had overwintered in my basement last year. Treated it like a house plant, and it has been budding non-stop all season long. It does need to be deadheaded, so I need to cut off the spent blooms. But look at all the buds it has still coming now in September. This one is really easy. As far as annuals go, geraniums are great. I love the old-fashioned look of them, but also they're really low care. They don't need a lot of water, so they're pretty drought resistant, I believe. At least it seems like to me, because we had a really dry summer and there were many days that I forgot to water these, and it's still happy and pushing out lots of buds. So this is an annual that I would grow every year going forward. I just love it. I do plan on overwintering it again this year. And here's another one. I also overwintered this one. This one's growth is a little more scraggly, not as bushy, but nonetheless, it is blooming and still putting out lots of buds as well. These cosmos that I'm growing in this terracotta pot on my back patio are looking lovely. The variety is a dwarf variety, meaning it's a little bit shorter in stature, at just about 18 to 24 inches tall. It's called Little Princess. It's a single petaled white bloom, and they are huge. These blooms are so large and so pretty. And here are some plants from Steph's Home Nursery. I have this 9-bark and this snowball bush viburnum that I'm going to be planting soon. And I also have these plants here that are waiting to get in the ground. Let me know in the comments below if you have a spot in your garden that you use as your home nursery, where you put your plants that you're waiting to get planted. This grass here I absolutely love. It's called Black Hawk, and it's a dark foliage perennial grass. I have this ground cover here. It's like a low growing evergreen shrub. It's called Pacific Juniper. The foliage. Or the needles. And this sugar tip rose of Sharon that I'm so excited to add to my garden. Look at these beautiful blooms and variegated foliage of this plant. I have a Godzilla fern that I also need to plant in my Japanese maple garden. A Hinoki cypress here that I want to find a home for. And my ivory halo dogwoods, all to be planted hopefully this fall. Here are those two pots that I talked about when we were looking at the evergreens by the back door. These are the same type of evergreens, but I love the way that they have a nice rounded mound type shape and that they provide me with year-round interest. I never have to change these, and they're a lot less work than annuals in my opinion. And I really like that the way that they're looking, flanking these steps. These are the stairs to our walkway that lead to the front door. Here in the backyard, as we head towards the shed, there are some pretty things going on here as we head into the fall. This Dr. Merrill magnolia has put on so much growth since we planted it here. I just love this tree. It's probably my favorite tree in my garden. Well, unless we start talking about my Japanese maples. But this tree has beautiful large white blooms in very early spring. It's my earliest flowering tree towards mid-April. And it's a memorial tree that we planted for our last Italian Greyhound, Vince. The Autumn Joy Sedum is looking really pretty as well. You can see the size difference here. I have a small, medium, large, and this one got chomped on by something. I'm pretty sure these are deer resistant, so if I had to guess, it was probably the bunnies. But that one gets the most sun. I'm going to move these this fall to a spot where they can all get full sun. I'll divide that one. I'm going to try to get 5 out of this to do a drift in one of my front beds. This dark foliage shrub here is a Proven Winners hibiscus called Perfect Storm. It had these beautiful pink blooms that are now done blooming, but even so, the foliage is so beautiful. Here I have a grouping of 3 Karl Forster reed grasses. These are ornamental grasses. The dry, hot weather this summer got them to be pretty ratty looking. They were really kind of dry and just not happy. So I cut them back, and now they look like a nice new little tuft of green foliage. And I will also be moving these this fall to a new bed that I'm working on by the driveway. I have a variegated iris in the center there, and some Angelina Stonecrop sedum that I'm just loving as a ground cover. It's so easy to grow. I have it growing in my pavers here. I just love it, so I let it be. And here is my Quickfire. This is a Proven Winners Quickfire hydrangea that has the most gorgeous fall color on its blooms. I've cleaned up my window boxes, and I took out all of the Gomphrena and Alyssum because the ones in the window box did suffer a little. It gets a little bit drier back here, and I wasn't always great with watering towards the end of the summer. We just get tired, right? I also took out the cosmos that I had in these pots, and I just have my Verbena bonariensis in them at the moment. The creeping Jenny in the pots are happier now. They're starting to green up and grow a bit more now that I've taken out the cosmos that were shading them. And the verbena was also getting shaded, but now it's putting on a bunch of new growth and some blooms. I planted this poppy here. I had bought it around Mother's Day, and it had a leaf that kind of died off, and I thought it was a goner, to be honest. But look, it's sending up some new growth, so that's a really good sign. This is Pink Perfection Poppy. It's a perennial poppy. The anemones that I have in this bed are budding up and getting ready to bloom. That one there is Honorine Joubert, and this one is the same pink one that I have in my patio bed. These like water, so we've gotten a couple of days of rain recently, and it made all the difference. They're getting nice and green and sending up buds. The Zephrine Drouin Rose that I planted late spring, early summer has put on a ton of growth. It is already halfway up the trellis. I do have to figure out how to train it up the trellis. I have never had a climber or climbing rose, so I'm gonna give this some attention this weekend and try to get it going up the trellis a little bit better. Right now I just kind of bent the cane and intertwined it here, but I'm going to try to kind of tie it to keep it going upward. But all the new growth has bright red foliage. I absolutely love this hydrangea. This is the Proven Winners Quickfire, and I also bought this as a clearance plant. This is its 3rd year planted here, and it is tripled in size. It's got the most beautiful fall color. The blooms age to a really rosy pink, almost red. Here's my hedge of my little limes, and the last couple of rainstorms have caused some weight on the shrub and brought down some of its blooms, but it's still looking really beautiful and starting to age to that gorgeous shade of antique pink. These Helen von Stein lamb's ear, they're absolutely beautiful. I actually have to move them out of here because they're getting buried and covered, and they're too pretty to be hidden. So I'm gonna move these out this fall as well. So the list for fall keeps growing. But these hydrangeas are absolutely beautiful. The boxwoods in these 2 concrete pots have also grown pretty well. They're sending out a lot of new shoots that I have to kind of trim and reshape these into some balls. That one still has a pretty good shape. And in the center here, I have a David Austin Bathsheba rose that is a climber. I've even gotten a couple of blooms out of it this summer, but I have to find a home for it out in the garden. My guacamole hosta has put up some bloom stalks, and something took a bite out of it. I just noticed. You can see it got chomped. I didn't touch the foliage, but they ate the blooms. And these Brunnera that I have here, they are a Jack Frost Heartleaf Brunnera. I had a grouping of 3. These 2 are doing really well, but that one isn't for some reason. So hopefully, I gave it a little bit of fish emulsion, so hopefully that one, makes it through the winter and comes back next spring. I still have that one in a cage because it was so little when I put it in there. I didn't want anything to eat it before it had a chance to rebound. But that is the Black Pearl Heuchera. And this one's a Dolce Wildberry. And I had this one in a container with some Japanese painted fern last year, and I planted it out here, and there must have been a little bit of fern, because now I have a fern baby in here. So that's always exciting. I still have some chairs in the Japanese maple garden to shade hosta that we planted, because we still have a lot of sun in this area, and hopefully over the next year or 2, when these grow a little bit more, they'll provide more shade, and the hosta will grow a bit better in this area. But here are some more of that Helen von Stein lamb's ear. I just can't believe how big these got. I had 3 containers that I bought at the Home Depot. I divided them into 4 clumps. One of them was a little bit bigger, so I divided it. And I'm going to divide these again this fall, and I probably out of 3 containers will end up with about 8. And in the center there I have a Hamlin grass. I have one there, and I have one there, and a bunch of weeds that we need to work on. Like I said, this area is a work in progress. We put down some cardboard to do some sheet mulching so that hopefully that will help break down the grass, and it'll be a little bit easier for us to lift that sod. And I have this beautiful golden spruce in a tomato cage because a deer took a few bites out of it. And these are such slow growing conifers that I'm even going to put chicken wire around it for the winter. If I don't protect it and they keep taking bites out of it, eventually it'll be down to nothing. And I'm just worried that at some point it won't be able to bounce back. So I do have deer, lots of them, and it's always a battle out here. My strawberry blonde sunflowers are now done, but I am waiting to collect the seed from them for next year. See how they're starting to dry up? As soon as they start getting to this stage, you'll try to, you'll have to wait until they dry out enough to be able to pull them. But the goal is that we can share them with the birds, but hopefully we still get a few out of here so that we can grow them again next year. When they're dry, the seeds kind of plump up. And then you can plant them again next year. My gorgeous Colorado blue spruce that is now officially taller than my house. We don't know what we're going to do with this tree. It's always a conversation. It's just too big for this corner. We bought it as a supposed dwarf, and we were newbies, just starting our landscape. I knew very little about gardening, and, rookie mistake. Planted a large evergreen too close to the house. And, we thought about moving it, but the expense and risk is just not, it's not worth it to us, because as beautiful as this tree is, it would probably cost us a lot of money to move it, and there would be no guarantee that it would survive. So the only thing we could do is buy another and plant it in the garden, and know that in about, 9 years, it'll grow from a 2 to 3 foot tree to taller than your house. So we're back around to the front of the house now, and this is the bed on the right side if you're looking from the street, and it's still looking great. All of the foliage from the daylilies and iris that we cut back maybe a month ago now is all starting to grow back, and these little tufts of green grass. My little Nana Lutea evergreen looks so beautiful, backed by that blue conifer. I just love this Colorado blue spruce, and it's such a shame that it got so big. I would definitely plant something blue there again, though. And this is a blue Atlas cedar. It's in a serpentine shape. And my beloved blue star juniper. Look how pretty that color is. Super low maintenance, low growing, and slow growing evergreen. My phlox is still blooming, the phlox that we planted a few weeks back. And I'm starting to get buds for blooms on the marigolds that I grew from seed kind of late in the season. So hopefully these will take us through the fall. This Wine and Roses Weigela, it has such a beautiful red foliage that makes it such a great transitional shrub now as we head into fall. And here we're back at the front porch, and my purple fountain grasses that we planted a few weeks ago are filling out nicely and starting to send out their plumes. The creeping Jenny is trailing along the front of the container. Now that it has more light, it's been growing so well, and I love the yellow against the brown container. This Asian garden celosia bloomed all summer long, and now it's starting to have its foliage turn red. Look how beautiful that looks as we head into fall. It's changing with the season. The alyssum is also starting to push out some fresh growth. This nasturtium is also super happy with the cooler temperatures. This is the Tip Top Alaskan Salmon Nasturtium from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. It has such a beautiful variegated foliage and these salmon blooms that have a little bit of a deeper orange in the throat and a little bit of yellow. They really do look like a great flower for fall. I hope that you've enjoyed your time with me here in the garden, checking things out and seeing how the garden looks right now in the middle of September. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos, and we'll see you soon.